KHAZARIan Mafia circling the wagons around the U.S. election and their Manchurian candidate. The KHAZARIan Mafia is pulling out all the stops to destroy the constitutional republic of the United States as violence and arson course further descend into chaos. NSA, MI6, and Pentagon sources agree. The scenario unfolding is an election that is an obvious farce even to the most deeply brainwashed of the Kool-Aid drinking shipper. We are now in the looting and burning home stretch, so don't expect mass arrests of Democratic politicians like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and company. Presidential immunity from prosecution is Biden's main motivation for becoming a candidate in the first place. It's also the best chance for the left and right House and Senate cabal, minions, and intel agency deep state operative involved in the Iranian one and Ukraine funds to the DNC to avoid prosecution. So the swamp rats are all desperate to steal the election by whatever means possible. The probable outcomes, various sources say, are that the election will be cancelled due to Antifa and BLM attacks on the polling stations where Trump supporters will be turning out in numbers for a historic landslide victory. The patriotic support is evident in large rally turnouts and parades around the country, while Sleepy Joe is asking for his teleprompter answers to be more visible in front of a handful of MSM prostitutes. The more likely scenario is lawsuits and chaos concerning mail-in ballots that could last for weeks or months. Either scenario will leave Trump in power. The provable criminal Biden and son's involvement in Ukraine and China deals is making his election a long shot, as any debate will expose that he is hopelessly senile and unfit to hold office. One source even believes he's being set up to be such a loser that one cannot help but suspect that the same people who support Trump have deliberately placed an unelectable Biden as his opponent. We realize many people, including many of our subscribers, think the U.S. President Donald Trump is going to save the day and make America great again. However, some sources say the depopulation Santanas have other contingency plans. If you think Trump is saving America, why has he been repeatedly calling for Americans to be vaccinated by November? For example, he recently tweeted, "On November the 3rd, Michigan will decide whether we quickly return to record prosperity or whether we allow Sleepy Joe Biden to delay the vaccine." Other sources contend that Trump is between a rock and a hard place, which forced him to abandon his pandemic hose early warning and go along with the shutdown recommendations to remain ahead of the scamdemic plan designed to kill his re-election chances by blaming him for the manufactured death toll. So he was forced to keep the medical crooks like Fauci and Briggs on the front line and give them enough rope to hang themselves on the record. Even the US CDC is now being forced to admit the pandemic is over, as shown by this map they produced. Nevertheless, how can we reconcile Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner as a member of the kill 90% of humanity and enslave the rest? Kept at death cold. Remember, Kushner owned 666 Fifth Avenue building where injectable microchips were developed. The NSA, the French military, British intelligence, and others confirmed the vaccines are intended to contain microchips, and some among them say, "It appears Americans are being presented with a false choice of senile criminal Biden and his merry band of reloading Antifa anarchists and BLM communists, or Israeli-loving Trump who has failed to contain the deadly virus pandemic and his gun-owning constitutional patriots. Either way, by the end of the year, the Kool-Aid drinkers will be lining up for a vaccine, combined with a digital wallet and prosperity." Trump the builder commented right after the 11th September that bombs must have been used to bring down the towers, so he knows the score, but failed to mention Israel involvement in 11th September or, as a matter of fact, any truth about 11th September whatsoever, so we must ask ourselves, why? Some NSA, CIA, and Pentagon sources say Trump is just play acting and that he really will turn against the KHAZARIan Mafia in the end. They say one day soon, Trump will round up the Zionists and execute the Santanists, including Kushner. We hope they are right, and the reason why he hasn't already done it in the 4 years he has in power is that deep state actors have surrounded him in the Mueller investigation and impeachment proceedings. Only time will tell during the second term if AG Barr will get replaced. As things stand, the corporate media has begun propaganda preparations for a hung election. Here's what Facebook Mark Zuckerberg Rockefeller had to say last week. What we and other media need to start doing is preparing the American people that there's nothing illegitimate about this election taking additional days or even weeks to make sure that all the votes are counted. This is a reminder of what we are really fighting for: better management of the planet. In the past 50 years, we have wiped out numerous wildlife, and yet Trump and his backers have failed to offer even a basic solution or approach to this problem. Okay, now for some good news. We heard from high-level sources in MI6, the NSA, Asian secret societies, and the P3 Freemasons that real change is coming, such as Trump, China Xi Jinping, Russia Vladimir Putin, and other world leaders will all be removed. The sources say a deal has been reached between Asian and Western secret societies to completely revamp the way we run this planet. This would explain their prediction that Trump will be the last president of the corporate United States and that a totally new and legitimate leader will emerge, possibly by early in 2021. Russian FSB sources also report a revolt against the fake Vladimir Putin. Here's what the FSB had to say. The real Putin was ritually murdered. They drained blood from him and inject a special liquid. Horrific things were done. Patriarch Kirill Gundian, a dishonest homosexual who had been involved in many bad things, died in March 2018 from a heart attack. He was in a coma for a long time, never came back from a coma, and died. Now two doubles, fake patriarchs, are leading the Russian Orthodox Church. They closed churches and are working undercover in Israeli leadership. The famous monk Father Sergei appealed to all Orthodox Christians about the patriarch's wrongdoing and about the doubles of Putin. The main double of Putin is a Mossad agent. Now high-level Nazis such as Queen Bellatrix, other high-level pedophiles, and Kabard are running away to Russia to hide. There are no mass arrests of pedophiles in Russia. The scum decided to hide in Russia, assuming nobody would enter Russia, out of fear of the Russian army. There are also mass demonstrations all over Russia as that regime came out of the closet and tried to start vaccinating everyone in the country with microchips. The FSB sources say. P3 Freemason sources say a new regime will be installed in Russia now that an East-West deal has been reached. The situation in China is harder to read, but there are growing signs the leadership of President Xi Jinping may come into an end. Chinese military intelligence sources say the mass death incident in Wuhan, China last year was caused by Xi and his people going ahead with 5G despite warnings it was dangerous. This means the faction that wants to microchip and micromanage the Chinese population is losing military support. A UN call for an investigation into what really happened in Wuhan is also putting pressures on his regime, British military intelligence sources say. Asian secret society sources were unable to confirm or deny these allegations before this report went live. While lowering down on KHAZARIan slave leadership totem pole, Canada's Justin Castro Trudeau has been exposed of getting $125 million foundation payment entirely with taxpayer money, according to Canadian Secret Intelligence Service sources. Not only that, but Justin Castro Foundation has been getting anywhere from $150,000 to $700,000 a year from the Tide Foundation funded by none other than George Soros, the sources say. Mass protests against Castro and his Nazi deputy, Chrystia Freeland, have begun in Canada. In Japan, meanwhile, a push is being made to replace slave Prime Minister Shinzo Abe with his deputy, Yoshihide Suga. Suga has been involved in multiple corruption scandals. For example, he has been pushing for compensation Japan's indigenous Ainu people with generous funds. The problem, according to Japanese military intelligence, is that most of the so-called Anu who get the money are in fact North Korean agents. Suga is involved in many other scandals, including shady Olympic and defense-related land deals that line his pockets, they say. For this reason, Suga is expected to be just an interim figure who will preside over a complete revamp of the post-war colonial government in Japan. There are many other signs of the collapse of the old system, especially in the US. Here, as widely reported elsewhere, there are mass incidents of arson, paid demonstrations in 48 of the 50 largest US cities, attacks on railway transportations, and etc. We are also getting reports of attempts to poison large segments of population. For example, one reader reports, "I was badly poisoned on 2 recent humanitarian flights home from Central America, through Houston Airport and on to Canada, as was my travel partner, and we almost died. The airlines were United and Air Canada." Upon trying to detoxifying and researching what happened to us, I discovered that they are using new functioning nanotechnology chemicals metals on aircraft under the guise of new anti-COVID-19 measures. We also got some information showing the attempts to force everyone to wear masks is unscientific nonsense. The medical literature for the past 45 years has been consistent. Masks are useless in preventing the spread of disease, and if anything, are unsanitary objects that themselves spread bacteria and virus. The NSA and other sources are also reporting intensified weather warfare in all parts of the planet, with either droughts or floods devastating agricultural production in China, Africa, in the US, and elsewhere. A look around the world will also reveal demonstrations against Khazarian puppet leaders in France, Germany, Israel, Australia, and etc. The general on-the-ground atmosphere in this part of the world is one of disbelief that sitting governments are so completely inept at handling a national emergency, be it staged or otherwise, is how MI6 sees the situation. We envision an autumn and winter of civilian discontent, and by Christmas, we may very well see a popular revolt to put down this whole medical martial law fiasco, they predict. A former Vodafone boss explains how the 5G creates sickness that provides a positive COVID-19 test result and the global agenda that goes with its introduction. Reports are also coming in of high-level financial intrigue in an ongoing attempt by the KHAZARIAN Mafia to cut down funds for a campaign to fix the planet. Despite all the chaos and seemingly bad news reported above, it is all part of the death throes of KHAZARIAN mob rule. Western and Asian secret society sources say, preparation to replace this dying beast with a better system of running the planet are well underway, they say. For example, we were able to confirm with Japanese bank what our Pentagon sources said last week, in that the SWIFT international payment system is no longer under the control of the Zionists. The banks say they no longer have to go through Citibank or Bank of America to send money overseas. Furthermore, transfer can now be done without using the mark of the beast mine number that used to be mandatory in Japan. There is also record shipping volume from the China to the US on West Coast port. This means some sort of US-China trade deal has been reached. Another sign of an East-West deal is seen in the public deal between the Vatican and China. An interim agreement on the appointment of bishops between China and Vatican has been implemented successfully since it was signed around 2 years ago. Jia Lijian, spokesman of China Ministry of Foreign Affairs, said at a press conference on 10 September. Also, a White Dragon family ally has been contacted by the Rothschild and Rockefeller families with a view to some kind of collaboration in the World Future Planning Agency, according to MI6 sources. Of course, the war is not yet over, and we can expect a lot of turmoil over the coming months. This may include an EMP attack, a food crisis, new full-flag nuclear attacks, and more. Nonetheless, all of the world's major military forces are now aligned against the KHAZARIAN Mafia, so their final defeat is only a matter of time. We are reluctant to give specific dates, but world events make it clear satanic elite rule is ending.